Everybody already knows. What? Well, are we good now? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the last talk, the last of these types. I think there's a CTF review after this. But I do recognize that I'm one of the things that stays between you and beer and waking up. So we won't take too long with this. You are all here to hear about a volunteer cyber department that we have in Michigan, which is a state near Indiana. I am happy to be back in Indiana. I was in Indiana for 7 years back in the late 70s and early 80s, back when Al Gore was inventing the internet. And back when information security or computer security at the time was making sure you lock your 3270 terminal when you go to the bathroom so that nobody edits your .profile, so that when you come back you have jokes about your mom. So I've been aware of cybersecurity for many years, but I didn't work in cybersecurity for a long time. I was a scientist at a pharmaceutical company, in fact, and it was not the one that was represented in this last talk. It was one that was based in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is the Upjohn company, and we eventually got bought by Pfizer. And then I went back to Purdue to teach there. That was the one up in Hammond. So I have a little bit of relationship to the PU in the IUPUI, right? So my name is Ray Davidson. I'm the project manager for the Michigan Cyber Civilian Corps, which is a group of cybersecurity volunteers that volunteer to assist the state in rapid resolution of an officially declared cyber emergency. And I put that terminology up there because that's what the charter statement says. So let me ask you this. If you read the charter statement of the Michigan Cyber Civilian Corps, and you saw that this was a group of volunteers who were going to assist the state in the event of a governor-declared cyber emergency, what does that mean? You're all jumping to your feet to answer this question. You are not very good first responders to my question. I started doing this back in 2015, I think. And I'll go through the history of it later. The organization had sort of been in existence, and I was part of it, but they asked me to take over program management, and I looked at the charter statement, and I thought, oh, what the hell does that mean? Because what's a cyber emergency, right? It's I click shit and I'm owned, right? Or when your mom calls you, all of you, we all do family, right, IT support, right? And the emergency is, I'm trying to get my money back from Nigeria. But that's not a state cyber emergency. So I didn't know what are we supposed to be doing. So that was part of the challenge. Nevertheless, as is typical with government programs, that didn't stop progress from being made, progress being defined sort of broadly. But we have now Public Act 132 of 2017, which you can look up on the internet. It's a real thing, which gives us some authorization from the state legislature. We have authorization to act, and we have indemnification, which means that if we're doing our best and we screw something up, we're protected by Good Samaritan kind of legislation, right? So, and don't ask me how we prove due diligence. Hopefully we'll never have to fight that battle. I do know some things that we have in place. So it's a work in progress, and we are actually making progress, and I tell you, I'm having a great time trying to do this thing because it's an idea and nobody's done it before. So this is my favorite thing, is making stuff up. And especially with government funding, Right? So here's the history. Our governor is a geek. He used to work for Dell. And whatever you might think about the governor of Michigan, he really supports this kind of stuff. He gets it. So I'm super happy to be working on this project. He had this idea back in 2011, and I'm not really sure why. You come up with the idea of we should have a bunch of cyber volunteers. But it happens that in Michigan, over on the east side of the state, there's Detroit, and they make cars over there. And you've heard about smart cars, right, and smart entertainment systems and things like that. So there's a nexus of cyber stuff over on the east side of the state. And if you look on the west side of the state where I live in Kalamazoo, and there's a lot of, there's a high degree of education there. It used to be the Upjohn Company, and there's still now some pharmaceutical company stuff there. Grand Rapids has some pretty smart people, and if you look all across, there's a swath on the bottom part of the state that follows the I-94 corridor. There's Jackson and Lansing and Ann Arbor. So, there's pretty smart people in Michigan, and they're looking for things. We have a reputation as being sort of a rusty state, but cyber is cool. So I can see why they're thinking about this. So they came up with the idea that maybe we could get some cyber people together. And he announced this at the North American International Cybersecurity Conference in 2013. How many of you have been to the North American International Cybersecurity Conference? Oh, yeah, okay, so we got one. I've been. It's international because it's in Detroit, and you can see Windsor across the water. But hey, you do what you can. And it is a pretty cool conference. And the governor personally sponsors it. So I don't know how many other states have the governor actually show up and talk about, and he's actually there all day. Governors are really busy, and he's there all day. So which actually speaks a lot for this thing. So it was started in 2000, he announced it in 2013. It was started as a joint effort between the state and an organization called Merit. And you remember I told you that I was at Purdue back when Al Gore invented the internet, and that was back when there was only maybe 100 nodes on the DARPA net. And Merit was one of the people providing networking to educational institutions in the Midwest. So Merit's been around a long time. They're not doing as much with networking now, and they were trying to expand into cybersecurity. So it was a good mix. Merit is a Michigan, I think they're a nonprofit. Not sure about that. So it was a good fit. For various reasons, Merit was reaching out to folks in the EDU, and they weren't able to get a lot of volunteers. And so you can think back to the first slide that I put up there, a group of volunteers who would help the state in the event of a cyber emergency. What kind of people would you look for? You can just think to yourself, this is why I'm here. It's the kind of people in this audience, and Merit wasn't really looking at people in this kind of audience. So, you guys live in Indiana. We'd love to have your help, but, Hoosiers should have your own cyber civilian corps, and I have had some calls about that. So Merit got started. They had about 30 volunteers. The state decided we need to make a little more progress on this, so they took the effort back, and like I said, I had been a volunteer for a couple of years, and they asked me to take it over because I was leaving my job. I was the Dean of Academic Affairs at SANS. Yeah, any of you heard of SANS? Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's pretty cool. So I helped them spin up the master's program, and I was looking for something else to do. So we have now a goal of, the last official goal I saw written down was 200 people by the end of 2018. I think we've scaled that back to 100, but more, okay? So here's a picture. This is us. This is about half of us, actually. At our last face-to-face meeting, this was at the Michigan Cyber Command at the Michigan State Police headquarters. And they turned off CNN and Fox News and all the stuff on the screens because that's highly confidential. And now there's just the state seal up there. The seal of the state, not... So anyway, thanks. I appreciate that. It means people are listening. So this is what the people look like. So in a theoretical case where you weren't a Hoosier and you were a Michigander or a Michigoose, and you lived in Michigan and you wanted to be a member of the Michigan Cyber Civilian Corps and look like this, what would it take? The requirements for being a member of the Cyber Civilian Corps are, you have to have a couple of years of information security, specifically incident response or digital or network forensics experience. We're looking for folks that have hands-on, real work experience, because the last thing you want, no matter what a cyber emergency is, how we define that, and we're still working on that, but no matter what kind of emergency it is, the chances that you're going to get something positive out of having a bunch of managers come in are pretty low, right? And we get people who are managers of cybersecurity groups, incident response groups, that say, I'd love to be part of this. And I'm like, well, what can you do? And, that's one of the most fun parts of my job, actually, is saying, what practical experience do you have? And I've been a manager, so I get it, but, we're looking for people that actually have hands-on experience for a couple of years. At least one foundational security certification. And this is that's examples. I'm sure there's probably others, but Security Plus, Certified Ethical Hacker, CISP, which is not really foundational, but if you got it, we'll take it. Or GIEC. Yeah, we're not going to do this. I have one. How many CISSPs in the audience? All right. How many of you are reluctant CISSPs, right? Watch Javad Malik's video on CISP, CISSP. Get down. We do ask for volunteers to have a letter of employer support that says that they're able to spend 10 days with us. And that sounds like we're going to take them away from their work, but actually that's 5 or 6 days of training. And for this year is the third year that we will be doing SANS training. We have a couple of exercises a year, a couple of one-day exercises. We ask people to show up, hopefully in person, and then we do monthly phone calls just to make sure that people are informed of what's going on. So it ends up being about 10 days that employers have to donate of an employee's time. The application process is probably too small for you to read, but basically if you're curious about this, you can go to MI CyberCorps, it's MichiganCyberCorps.org, and you can see that nice picture I showed up there, and some of the material from these slides is taken exactly from that site. You could, if you wanted, register and take the tests. You can see what the tests are. You can send me feedback if you want. I know some of the questions are not great, but it's a work in progress. So what happens is you go and you register, you give your name and address, email, that sort of thing, and you say, I'm interested, and you get an email link to take test number 1. Test number 1 is a basic networking and security test. It's, I'm not going to tell you what's on any of the questions, but anybody in this room should be able to pass it. Managers, in fact, the last person that went through it was a manager, and he didn't do so well. And he wrote me a pleading letter. You really need people that understand frameworks. And I'm like, that's not first responder cyber incident response. So anyway, you take the first test. If you pass the first basic test, you unlock the basic incident response and the basic digital forensics test. And if you pass the basic one, you unlock the advanced version of each of those. So you have to pass 4 tests. You can fail essentially one of the advanced tests. And if you pass 4 or 5, we send you a note that says, congratulations, you're a wiener. Send us your resume, have your employer fill out this employer agreement. And I should say the employer agreement is not required because some employers are big and everything has to go through legal. And basically, if their manager knows what they're doing and their manager's going to agree to them showing up, we're okay with that. Because if you don't show up, you don't stay an active member anyway. So it's sort of transparency with the employer. We also ask for a confidential disclosure agreement because we anticipate that if we respond in the event of a cyber emergency, you're going to walk in there and you're going to see whatever's flowing across the network. And we have, say, Ford and GM in the same state. And it might be that if you work for Ford, you're going to, for their incident response team, you're going to see something on GM's network. And I don't right now know how we would handle that. Personally, I suspect that GM is not going to call the volunteers. They probably got their own incident response team. But if you have a competitor responding to an incident on your property, you probably want to know that those people have signed a confidential disclosure agreement and they're not going to go telling your secrets. Once we review the documentation, the other thing we're having people return now is permission to do a background check. We do an FBI background check. That's a 10 print. You have to go get fingerprinted, and the FBI tells us whether it's okay, or actually the Michigan State Police hears from the FBI what they find, and they tell us whether it's okay for you to be a member. And we haven't started that yet. We just have the permission forms being returned. So I say that we have 75 people on the roster. Talk to me again in a couple of months, and we'll see how many people survive the background check. I don't think it'll be a problem, but if somebody else is doing the talk next year, you'll know. So currently, here's the state of the Michigan Cyber Civilian Corps. We are the only state-sponsored, and this, like I say, this is really state-sponsored. It's not in conjunction with the National Guard, and it's not part of law enforcement. We're a separate, we're authorized by the legislature, which is different from some of the things that other states are considering. I have had a call, actually, from a legislative assistant in the Indiana State Legislature. I've talked to people in Washington and Georgia. I've got something set up with Maryland. So people are actually looking at doing this, but most of them are not looking at doing it independently. And there are reasons why that's a good way to do it that I'll talk about. We have 75 members on the roster. Like I said, not all of those are active, and we're going through culling the roster now. Half of the members meet DoD, Department of Defense Directive 8570. Anybody know about DoD 8570? Oh, okay. You're the one of the ones that laughed at the Navy jokes. So DoD 8570 is the rule that says if you work on an information assurance or basically a cybersecurity project for the government, you have to be qualified, and these are the things that there's a list of certifications that qualifies you. And the training we did 2 years ago qualifies people, and we had half our people pass. So we have mil-spec volunteers. That's why I put that up there, is because I like to say mil-spec for volunteers. Michigan mil-spec volunteers. So for a declared cyber emergency, and there actually is such a thing in Michigan, we have a state cyber disruption response plan, which you can find online. You can't find, the appendices are not online, but the Michigan Cyber Disruption Response Plan does define 5 levels of incidents. And level 5, the highest one, is the governor declared cyber emergency. And the qualification for that is that life and health are at risk. So if the scenario we always run through is that some nation state, I have no idea who would do this, would take down power plants in the Upper Peninsula. You all know that Michigan has 2 peninsulas, right? There's one hand, and then there's the other hand up here. And only 4 people live in the UP, in the Upper Peninsula. And they don't come out during the winter. But the 2 power plants up there, or however many of them, 2 of them go down, and which cuts off the grid in Michigan, and that, of course, spills over into Ohio, and so the whole Midwest is out, and it's the winter. And I mean, that part's kind of humorous, but seriously, they're talking about if something like that were to happen, we're not talking about weeks, we're talking about months now. So anyway, that's a real cyber emergency. And again, if you think what you as a cyber first responder would do in that situation, I don't know. That's what our charter says. And we do exercises with the National Guard. We participate with that. So we'll be warm bodies, hopefully warm, in that kind of scenario. But we're looking for other kinds of things to do because we are cybersecurity people, and we want to volunteer to help our community, right? And we don't want to do nothing until the unnamed nation state hacks our power plant, right? So anyway, back to the slide. In the event of a real cyber emergency, we would coordinate with the state police. The cyber disruption plan that I mentioned defines the state emergency operations coordinator to be a commander in the state police. So we have, if any of you have worked with any kind of emergency response plan, it's really important to have a command structure. And there's a commandant in the state police that coordinates everything. So we're part of that command structure. We coordinate with the Michigan Army National Guard and the Air National Guard. We we work under, so Chris Glenski is the person. This is just a diagram because we like to use Visio every once in a while. In the event of not just a governor-declared cyber emergency, but like I said, I hope that there's never going to be anything that rises to that level of a governor-declared state of cyber emergency. I really hope that. And it's very difficult for us to practice those. How many of you have ever done tabletop exercises of this sort, where you have, okay. And my experience with those tabletop exercises is that they don't have people who have keyboard experience around the table. They have a bunch of managers. And the managers all say, yeah, we got people that would do that. Yeah, we could have somebody there in 2 hours. And it's sort of logistical, but it's not tactical. And nobody is practicing finding attacks on power plant stuff, right? So I don't know. You know, we're still, I should probably be saying this and having Adrian record it, but I think this is a great thing to do, that states are coming up with this idea, but I think like many state-sponsored things, it's a little bit high level. We're trying to keep it practical, okay? So we're making sure that our folks take training and they can actually type on the keyboard and they can run an Nmap scan and that sort of thing. In the event of a smaller scale cyber emergency, what would happen is that somebody would call probably 911. We're trying to set up a 211 system in the state of Michigan. And it would go to the Michigan Cyber Command Center. That's what you saw. That's where the picture was. That would get triaged. And if they determine that there's no criminal component, or if there is a criminal component, that we have people that can operate under that scenario, then they might call us in. If there's no criminal component, or it's not going to go to court, and they can use us amateur yahoos, you know, they'll call us, and we'll dispatch some people depending on geographic location and what's involved. I've gotten a couple of calls already looking for particular types of expertise, and we have sort of run this as a dry run. So it works. I put this up here just because it's an illustration of the partnership that we have. All right, MIC3, we have a logo. We don't have t-shirts yet. And I think I've got stickers though. So if you want MIC3 stickers, we're good. We work with the state police, and we have Air Guard and Army Guard in Michigan, so we're kind of lucky. Activities. What do we actually do besides prepare to respond for a cyber emergency, whether it's governor declared or something lower level, which is what we're trying to work on? We have quarterly face-to-face meetings of some sort. One of them is the SANS training, which is a week long. We do go to the North American International Cybersecurity Conference, and we all look across the water at Windsor. And we practice speaking a little bit of French, because we might have to operate with our Canadian friends. We have monthly conference calls with me and everybody that shows up. We have a Slack channel that actually gets a lot of use. And we do joint exercises with the Air Guard and the Army Guard. I was just with a half dozen people 2 weekends ago at the Air Guard base in Battle Creek, Michigan. We were doing an international exercise. I had a team from Latvia, and also we're doing an exercise, I think, on Wednesday with the Army Guard and Latvia, Estonia, the Republic of Georgia, and some other U.S. forces. These are kind of paintball exercises. They're not actually incident response exercises, and I have my own opinions about whether that's useful. I mean, the fact that I started a sentence with "I have my own opinions" kind of tells you my opinion of it, right? But still, it's really good to interoperate with our partners, and it is fun. So we do these joint exercises. In 2018, we have a day-long exercise that I'm trying to set up with a university, some university in the state, just to give us that connection. We have SANS training coming up in July. It's already scheduled, which, if you know the SANS curriculum, it's the network forensics class. And I'll talk about what we've done in the past. And, I said the International Cyber Summit. So what do we get? What do members get out of being members of the Cyber Civilian Corps? And I hope that it's already clear that the state gets something. They have a bunch of volunteers that they can call on. Okay, that's what you would put in the newspaper, right? What does that mean? Well, don't ask. This is USA Today. You know, we don't. It's 140 characters. That's all you get. You have a bunch of volunteers that can respond in the event of a cyber emergency. What else do you want? But we're trying to move that down into small and medium-sized business response, so that if people have an issue, we can help them out. Now, again, I think it's going to be a challenge to figure out exactly what that would be like, but we got to try. And in fact, I'm talking to the Michigan Financial Officers Governance Association, or MFOG, I think. Anyway, some financial governance organization because they're excited because there are volunteers that will help them with their cyber incidents. And then I'm going to go talk to them about, okay, what's a cyber incident? When would you call us? And we're going to go through that negotiation of, you know, could we help you? We got hit by ransomware. Well, where are your backups? You know, that might not be what they want to hear, but where are your network diagrams? Because we can all walk into an organization and say, give me your updated network diagram, right? But I'm hoping that what will happen as a result of this, you know, so the USA Today, the Twitter, you know, 140 characters tells them there's people to help, and we start talking to them about what we can do to help, and they realize, well, you know, you can't do very much to help us because we haven't done our job. And then we can help them do their job so that we could help them. And what that will do is it will make it less likely that we'll have to come in and help them anyway, right? They'll do their proactive stuff. So this is my Pollyanna pipe dream. So what are the benefits to small and medium businesses? Well, that's it. And that's something we can't really, I'll talk to you about it because you're security geeks, but that would be spilling the beans to them because we have to go through that process. If I just came to them and said, well, you guys are hosts, you know, we can't really do very much to help you, but you should be doing security awareness training. They're going to be like, we already do that. So what are the benefits to the members? Well, we do training. 2 years ago, we did SANS Security 504, which is the incident response class, to teach the basics of the incident response process. Last year, we did Security 511, which is a continuous monitoring class. My idea with that is that in order to tell what's abnormal on a network, if you want to determine that there's an incident to respond to, you've got to know what's normal. And that class gives you some ways of determining, of monitoring activity on the network so you can know what's normal. Now, we're not going to be in a position to have that kind of data for an organization where we go in to respond to an incident, but we have members that are going to go back to their own organizations and take that knowledge out there. So at the very least, we can push that knowledge out into the small and medium-sized business arena. And this year we're doing network forensics, which is going to take that knowledge of what's normal, be able to detect what's not normal. Obviously, there's the advantage of doing networking with it throughout Michigan, developing your Rolodex. People have actually gotten jobs from talking to each other. And there's the warm feeling you get inside from doing something to help your community. We've done some awards and recognition. I've got some recognition. I'm not going to go through this because I don't even know what some of these are. They're government kinds of things. We have, though, one thing I will highlight is, if I can get this to work, NGA, that's the National Governance Association. We've created a guide to help other states do something like this, and I've gone around to other states and talked to them about how to do it. So Michigan is a model, which doesn't mean anything to you because you're Hoosiers, but you know we're neighbors, so we'll let you share in our reflected glory. And also, I was really excited to see a blog on the War on the Rocks site talking about Estonia. How many of you know about Estonia's cyber defender activity? Anybody a citizen of an e-citizen of Estonia? Because you could be one. No? Okay, you can look that up online. Estonia is like the most advanced cyber country in the world. This happened after Estonia moved a statue of Lenin, and then the native Russians in Estonia rebelled and caused a big problem, and so patriotic Russian hackers in Russia hacked the Estonian grid, and it was a mess. And so now Estonia, the president of Estonia, is actually he's like the governor of Michigan in terms of being cyber aware. It's pretty cool. So you can find on the War on the Rocks site that blog, which puts us in the same as the Estonian Defense League. What we're going to do in the future, well, like I said, I sort of spilled the beans to you all. I'm hoping that we don't have to actually respond to the cyber event. We're trying to move, like the last talk said, we're trying to move more left of boom, so to catch before these two guys hit up at the corner. I hope you can read that. It's funny, trust me. You're not laughing. You all want to go drink beer, right? This is me. You can contact me. I'm the program manager. I'm easy to find on Twitter and LinkedIn. I've got my name on the back of my shirt here, so you can find me. I'm easy to find. Or if you don't want to talk to me, you can talk to Patrick Chandler, who's the project manager, and Chad Laidlaw, who is our executive sponsor. You can find the website, micybercore.org. It's a redirect, but you see what it goes to the redirect. You'll see why we have the website, micybercore.org. And I'm probably running short on time, so anybody got any questions? Yes, sir?
In your opinion, how much cyber is ZUSAC?
How much cyber what?
Is ZUSAC?
How much cyber? I don't...
ZUSAC!
Yeah, ZUSAC is... So the question is, how much cyber is ZUSAC? ZUSAC is... in Michigan, there's a bunch of local information security people that meet up in the various communities. You probably have one in Indianapolis. Is there a group of people that meet up and drink beer and give talks to each other in Indianapolis? No? Dudes and dudettes. So I don't understand the question, but it's pretty cybery. Yeah, we do the cybers in Kalamazoo. Should come meet with us. We have beer, and we meet at an ISP. And they have, in fact, when you come in the front door, there's a glass wall, and there's a lot of blue blinking lights. So if that's not cyber, I don't know what is. Any like serious questions from people that are not from Kalamazoo? Oh, come on. Don't you? All right. How many of you are going to go right out and form the Hoosier Cybersecurity Civilian Corps? Okay, this one thumbs up, and from a minority. So you go. Okay, and all right, excellent. Okay, thank you all for coming, and now you can go drink beer, but not in here because you're not supposed to have food and drink in here. It's time to clap. All right, thank you. What advice would I give if somebody wanted to start a program in Indiana? That is a good question, and I'm sort of hoping that people would pay enough attention to ask, and it's really disappointing when people sleep through my old talk, but it happens all the time, and then don't feel sorry for me. It's a top-down and a bottom-up thing. We had, like I said, there's a bunch of people that get together informally and do capture the flags together, and they go to nearby states to conferences and things like that, and they know each other. But the people in the legislature, like the governor, even at Merritt, they didn't know about that. On the other hand, if it were just the people that were hacking stuff and having fun and drinking beer, you wouldn't get the organization at the high level. So, and how to make that connection, I don't know the answer to that. The thing that I do when I talk to other states is that I tell them to look for like BSides organizations and the groups like MySec in Michigan. It's like a network of local groups. Like ZUSEC is part of MySec, which is the Michigan. There's ARBSEC. There's I don't know what they call the one in Jackson, but there's ones all over the state. I'm going to guess that there's probably clubs at Purdue. and IU and Ball State. I mean, look at the universities. You're not going to find people with 2 years of actual commercial experience with like Splunk and things like that. But the communication is the big thing, and communicate not only the need, but share the fun. I mean, it's these kinds of things that where you have fun, you come together, you do CTFs, and you learn stuff, and you share knowledge, and that generates a little bit of buzz. And, people are already aware about the cybers being, a thing. And so if you can, like the social engineering for blue teams talk two or three talks ago, present yourself as enthusiastic. I forget what he said, positive, enthusiastic. Be nice. Listen. Don't make fun of them, for clicking on stuff. And I mean, I have gotten fished before. When I worked at Sands, when I worked at Sands, I fell for the monthly phishing attack. The president of Sands actually sent around the note saying, "Okay, guys, I got fished." So you can't make fun of people. Everybody does, right? So just have fun. And if you can spread that, if you can get a little publicity, I was on Michigan Public Radio talking about this, which is a great interview. I have no people interviewing is a real skill that I learned. Anyway, talk to your congressperson. Maybe you have a local representative who has coffees. I do. And you go talk to them. Tell them that Michigan is doing something. And you don't want to let Michigan get ahead of you, right? Exactly. So, I mean, it's happening. Be helpful. Any other questions? Now everybody's standing in the back, waiting to get into my talk when it's over. Okay. Okay, Adrian, I think we're done. I think so. Nobody's asking any more questions.